What do you think separates advanced photographers from beginners? Is it technical skill, creativity, or something else? I'm going to talk all about it on today's episode of
Ask David Bergman.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back. Here I am, as always, answering your photography questions right here on Adorama TV. If you've got a photo question, you know what to do by now. Just go to askdavidbergman.com, submit that form on the site, and I just might pick your question to answer right here on a future show. This week's question was sent in by Elliot M, and he wants to know, what skills and knowledge separate beginner, intermediate, and advanced photographers in genres like sports, events, concerts, and news? If you were hiring a photographer, what specific abilities or experience would you expect at each level? I imagine there are lots of bells and whistles in a camera's features that perhaps even an advanced photographer does not use. Do they simply have more reps on their camera? Thanks, Elliot, for sending that in. This is such a great topic, especially for photographers who are relatively new to the business and want to work their way up the ranks. I do need to preface this by saying that photography, of course, is a creative field, so there aren't any hard and fast rules here. Now, there are some clear giveaways about someone's skill level you can tell just by looking at their work. But there are also plenty of times when it's not quite so obvious. A beginner might capture an incredible image by chance, and even advanced photographers can occasionally make rookie mistakes. What I'm going to share is my opinion based on many years as a working professional photographer. To break it all down, I'm going to go through the key skills and qualities that I think define each of those three levels: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. For each one, I'm going to cover gear, technical skills like exposure and focus, lighting, composition, editing, workflow, and style. Then I'm going to talk about a few other things that really separate advanced photographers from everyone else. Let's start with beginners. You've probably just bought your first DSLR or mirrorless camera, and you're using the kit lens that came with it. It's a big step up from a cell phone, but you're not necessarily sure if you should upgrade your gear, and honestly, you don't need to just yet. You're probably relying on auto exposure or experimenting with semi-automatic modes like aperture priority or auto ISO, along with the default autofocus settings. And that's fine, but you really should start paying attention to your camera's choices. That understanding is going to set you up for success as you move toward manual modes and more advanced techniques. Most beginners, they're going to shoot using only the available ambient light. Now that's fine, but this is a great time to also start building a basic understanding of composition. Just knowing simple techniques like the rule of thirds or how to use leading lines can help you to elevate your images. As for editing, you're probably shooting JPEGs and sticking to basic edits like adjusting brightness or contrast. You may not have an organized workflow yet, which means your images are likely scattered across multiple memory cards and hard drives. We've all been there. Don't worry about it. That's not uncommon at this stage, but it is something you're going to need to work on as you move forward. At this level, you're probably shooting a little bit of everything, which is fine. The goal is to learn your tools, experiment, and start exploring your creativity while hopefully having some fun in the process. Okay, now moving on to intermediate photographers. This is when you start to get the bug to buy some new gear. You understand the difference between primes and zooms, variable and fixed aperture lenses, and crop sensor or full frame bodies. Intermediate photographers really need to have a solid understanding of the exposure triangle. Shutter speed, aperture, and ISO are the building blocks of photography. Without knowing how these things work together, you're not going to progress much further. You're probably shooting RAW files now and using manual exposure at least some of the time because you know what you want to capture and how you want it to look. You're also starting to dive deeper into your camera's focusing modes. Modern bodies tend to have a lot of focus settings, and it's important to wrap your head around how they all work together. By now, you probably own at least one external flash. It could be a speed light, but maybe you've progressed to larger studio strobes. You're also paying more attention to ambient light. Instead of just shooting whatever it is in front of you, you're moving yourself or your subject to work with the light that you have. And if possible, you're picking the right time of day to get the best images you can. It's the same thing with composition. You're being more intentional. You're adding depth to your images and using framing to focus on your subject. You're also more confident in your editing skills, using programs like Lightroom, Photoshop, or Capture One, and you're starting to find a style that you like. Editing isn't as overwhelming anymore, and you know how you want your images to look as soon as you push the button. You've also started to realize that it's important to be able to, yes, find your images. You've invested in some digital asset management software and have begun collecting and organizing your old photos while developing a consistent workflow for everything moving forward. By now, you're also gravitating towards specific subjects or events, whether for income or passion, hopefully, maybe even both. Many photographers, they stay at this intermediate level. You can enjoy the craft without pursuing full mastery, and that's perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with staying right there if that's what you want to do. Now, finally, let's get to the best of the best, the advanced photographers. You've made a significant investment in equipment, and you choose to use the right gear for the job at hand. If you don't own what you need, you know exactly where to rent it. Your technical skills have become second nature. The camera is an extension of your hand, and you know how to use every feature and setting. You're probably shooting in manual exposure most of the time, only switching to auto modes for very specific situations. Either way, you can make changes quickly based on what's happening in front of your lens. Your focus settings, they're dialed in exactly how you want them, enabling you to capture anything, no matter how fast it's moving. At this point, you own enough lighting to create whatever look you envision, and you can read and manipulate the ambient light to suit your needs. Whether you're working with natural or artificial light, you know how to use it to your advantage every single time. You also know the rules of composition inside and out, and more importantly, you know when and how to break them. You've developed your own editing style, and you can replicate it consistently across all of your work. By this time, your workflow system is fine-tuned so that you can find any image with a simple search, and you've got backups of your backups of your backups to ensure that nothing is ever lost. Most advanced photographers are specialists in their field. Of course, there are always exceptions. I'm talking to you, Joe McNally, but everybody else understands that being known as an expert in one or two genres is better than just being pretty good at everything. Now, beyond all that, there are a few more things that separate advanced photographers from everyone else beyond the topics that I've already talked about. These things are specific, really just for advanced photographers. At this point, you've developed your own signature style, both in how you shoot and how you edit. When someone looks at one of your images, they probably know it's yours. Because of your level of experience, you pre-visualize your shoots and you don't miss anything. If you're a wedding photographer, you've covered so many weddings that you know what's going to happen before it happens. You work closely with the wedding planner and other vendors on site to ensure smooth communication, giving your clients the best possible experience and images. If you're a sports photographer, you know the sport inside and out. You've studied the teams and players that you're covering, so you can anticipate the action and position yourself to get the game-winning shots. Your hand-eye coordination is as good as it gets, so you don't miss anything important. Now, at this point, since you've seen just about everything, you're infinitely adaptable. When situations change unexpectedly, you don't get flustered. You just adjust on the fly and you still deliver every single time. At this level, photography isn't just about making pretty pictures. You're telling stories. Your images have impact and they make people feel something. So Elliot, that's what I think separates those three levels: beginner, intermediate, and advanced photographers. It's not really about all the bells and whistles that cameras have, like you asked. I do think more advanced photographers are aware of those features and know how to use them if it helps with a specific job, though. For example, I recently did a video about focus stacking, which is a feature built into some cameras. Now, I would consider myself an advanced photographer, but focus stacking isn't something I've ever needed on a real job. I don't shoot products, and I rarely do macro photography. That said, I know how to use it if I feel it's going to help me do any specific job. Advanced photographers have those extra skills in their toolbox, even if they don't use them every single day. I'm primarily known as a touring concert photographer. A beginner might be able to shoot a concert really well, but may not have access to all of those other skills. More than once, I've had music clients ask me to do a full band portrait of them while we're on the road. I have no problem bringing in a bunch of lights and creating a high-level image without any issues. That's the kind of thing an advanced photographer needs to be able to do without question. Now, you also asked, Elliot, if I were hiring a photographer, what specific skills and experience would I be looking for? Well, I can't speak for everyone, but I can tell you this. In all my years as a working pro, I don't think a potential client has ever asked if I know the exposure triangle or how to use focus stacking. I don't think anyone has even asked what gear I use. Now, I do have all the top-of-the-line Canon gear, but owning great equipment doesn't necessarily mean you know how to use it. Of course, the first thing that's going to get you a job is your images. People are going to look at your work, and if it moves them, fits their vision, and aligns with their budget, then you're at least in the running. If your style is undefined or too scattered, you're not getting past that first test. You need a big enough body of work to give the client confidence that you can consistently produce that quality of image when they need it. Or it could be that your work is amazing and cohesive, but it's just not the style they're looking for, and that's okay. In creative fields, your work is going to be unique to you. It'll be the right fit for some jobs, but not for others. Now, that said, there are a lot of great photographers out there, more today than ever before. The baseline is quality work, but there are some intangibles that are going to separate you from everyone else. I can tell you firsthand that in the concert touring world, you'll often hear that you need to be a good hang. And we might spend months or even years traveling and living together on tour buses. If you're not easygoing and fun to be around, it doesn't matter how good your work is. You'll make everyone miserable, and that's definitely a deal breaker when hiring a new crew member to go on the road. For wedding photographers, couples will often meet up with you before hiring somebody. They've already seen your images and are only taking the time to meet with people whose work that they like. From there, it's all about how you connect during that meeting. Very often, it's the little things and the attention to detail that are going to make the difference. If you're late, you seem disorganized, or you just don't inspire confidence, you're probably not the person they'll trust to document one of the most important days of their lives. And no matter the genre, clients like to work with people who are easygoing, reliable, trustworthy, and professional. You need to work well under pressure and deliver your images on time or ahead of schedule. Doesn't matter if the job pays $100 or $100,000. Make sure you've got your act together. Focus on mastering the fundamentals, building your style, and refining those intangible skills that set you apart in the industry. Those things are what's going to help you become an advanced photographer and land you the job that you really want. Thanks again, Elliot, for sending in such a great question. If you've got your own photo question, send it in by going to askdavidbergman.com. If you like this video, I hope you'll hit that like button and subscribe to the Adorama YouTube channel. Don't forget to click that bell icon to get notified when new videos come out from me and all the other great hosts here on Adorama TV. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you here next time, right here on Ask David Bergman.